What is up, all you beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, we discuss missing persons cases, usually pertaining to the Pacific Northwest, because my sister, Jessie Grace Moore, went missing from Wenatchee, Washington when she was only 23 years old. In 2016, a video came out of Jessie where her head was shaved and she is overtly under mental stress. The video was taken on June 20th and would be the day she would go missing. If you want to know more about Jessie's story, I will leave all of those videos linked in the description box, so go ahead and check them out if you are interested. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has shown love and support to Jessie and my family these last 5 years. It is not lost on us. In my last video, we were in Washington State discussing 2 disappearances on Mount Rainier. In today's video, let us travel south, along the Cascade Mountain Range, to the beautiful state of Oregon. In Klamath County, high in the mountains, lies Crater Lake, first coined in 1853 as Deep Blue Lake, due to the magnificent blue color of the water. The lake's water supply is strictly from snow and rain, meaning there are no inlets from other water sources that feed into the lake. It is one of the cleanest bodies of water in the world because of this. The lake itself measures at 21 square miles and is 1,943 feet deep, making it the deepest lake here in the United States. With 2,000-foot high bordering cliffs, you can quite literally see for 100 miles at certain elevations. But like anywhere else beautiful in the world, Crater Lake is a popular spot for tourism. There are 90 miles of hiking trails in the surrounding area, a 33-mile drive around the lake that has 30 overlooks, also boat and trolley tours that run daily during the high season. Although breathtaking, lore and mystery have surrounded the lake for over 7,000 years. Scientifically speaking, Crater Lake was formed when Mount Mazama, a 12,000-foot high mountain, erupted, collapsing and creating a caldera, which would eventually collect enough water and form what we know today as Crater Lake. The Klamath Indians who inhabited this area have a much more exciting story as how the lake came to be. From my understanding, Lao was the spirit of the below world, who lived underneath Mount Mazama. Lauyana inhabited Mount Mazama itself, and Lao would use the mountain as a passage into earth. Skell was the spirit of the above world, inhabiting the sky. One day, Lao fell in love with the beautiful Loha, daughter of the chief. She rejected him though because he was from the below world, even calling him ugly. Irate, Lao threatened the Klamath tribe with the curse of fire. This was no idle threat, and the chief consulted in Skell from above, asking for help and protection against Lao. Skell descended from the sky, landing at the top of Mount Shasta, where he and Lao battled with fire. A war ensued, with all spirits from the earth and sky participating. This was a dark time in the land, and caused great fear amongst man. 2 medicine men tried to appease the spirits by jumping into the pit of the below world. Impressed by this sacrifice, Skell fought even harder for man, finally defeating Lao. Skell collapsed Mount Mazama, and with it sent Lo back to the below world, where he would be in prison for all of eternity. Skell then filled the gaping hole with the bluest of waters to represent serenity and tranquility now that Lao was deep beneath. To this day, Crater Lake is a sacred place for the Klamath tribe. They view it as a portal between the human and the spirit world. It is their belief that only chiefs and shamans should have access to the lake, as they are mentally, spiritually, and physically prepared to endure the visions that the lake reveals to them. It was powerful, too powerful for ordinary people, one Klamath man was quoted saying. In 1923, this photo was taken of a Klamath Indian man posed by the lake in traditional garb. The man told the photographer, Edward Curtis, he was not supposed to visit this place, as he was neither a chief nor a shaman, and wished not to offend any of the spirits with his presence. He concealed his identity by giving Edward a fake name. On October 14, 2006, Sammy and his father, Kenneth, visited the Cleetwood Cove area of Crater Lake. Sammy Boehlke was only 8 years old, and he is described as having a big personality, although headstrong at times. He had a mild form of autism, known as Asperger's syndrome, and was sensitive to bright lights and loud sounds. The two were staying with some friends nearby at Diamond Lake, and had spent the day hiking. They decided to pull over to play a game of tag and hide and seek. After playing for some time, and with sunset approaching, Kenneth decided it was time to head back to the resort. He saw Sammy standing on one of the cinder cliffs at an overlook, claiming to see something yellow and hoped it was gold. Kenneth told Sammy it was time to go, and started walking towards the parked car. When Sammy didn't follow, Kenneth turned around and started back towards his son. Sammy more than likely thought the two were still playing a game of hide-and-seek, and kept a 50-yard distance between him and his father. Kenneth is quoted saying, "I never caught up with him, and at that point he disappeared over the top somewhere, and I lost him." When Kenneth couldn't locate Sammy, he flagged down a passing car and called 911 immediately. An informal search for Sammy began as soon as possible, but night had fallen and it was too dark to continue to look for him. A massive formal search was conducted the following day, however, lasting almost an entire week. Approximately 200 people looked tirelessly for Sammy, and I mean they really combed the area, covering approximately 3,000 acres, with helicopters, people on horseback, volunteers on foot, even a special rock climbing team from Yosemite National Park was called in. They scored the side of the slopes. Also, the lake was searched thoroughly by boat SAR. Investigators found it unlikely that Sammy had fallen into the lake due to obstacles, such as trees and large rocks, that lined the bank and would have broken his fall. One cadaver dog potentially hit on Sammy's scent, but when other dogs were brought in for confirmation, it was inconclusive. Also, during an air search, footprints were seen ascending a slope, but they ended up being from wildlife. Because of Sammy's sensory issues to loud noises and bright lights, air horns, whistles, and spotlights were not used in the search. At first, rangers thought he had run off and hoped he had enough skills to survive until he was located. Sammy and his family would camp often, but he did not have the knowledge to take care of himself in the wild. Sammy was not dressed properly for the cold nights of mid-October, and wouldn't know how to build a fire to keep himself warm. After all, he was only 8 years old. It is a possibility that Sammy was met with foul play, though this seems unlikely due to the fact there was low traffic at Crater Lake in the fall. Kenneth claimed only 2 cars drove by the entire time they were at Cleetwood Cove. Employees were stationed at all exits and didn't see Sammy in any of the vehicles that left that day. That is not to say that someone hadn't abducted him. He was only 85 pounds and could have been concealed within someone's vehicle pretty easily. If he hadn't been kidnapped, one would think some trace of Sammy would have been found during the extensive search of the area, but nothing ever was. In my last video, we touched on profile points that place a missing person under the 4-in-1 category. Of the 11 points, Sammy's disappearance includes 4. There was a point of separation between him and Kenneth. The time of his disappearance was late afternoon into the evening. Canines could not track his scent, and he had a disability. Did Sammy run off, getting lost in a matter of minutes, unable to find his way back to his dad or the car, and was simply just overlooked during the search, eventually succumbing to the elements? Was he abducted? Was someone watching Sammy and Kenneth play, deciding to take the child when they became separated? His abductor would have had to have impeccable timing, evading Kenneth and the stationed rangers. Or did something truly unexplainable happen that day that is beyond our comprehension? Charles McCullar, a Virginia State native, decided to hitchhike and bus around the United States when he was 19 years old. In January of 1975, his travels placed him in Eugene, Oregon, where he stayed with a friend for a couple of weeks. Charles was a photographer and planned to hike and camp through Crater Lake for 2 days, wanting to capture winter photos of the area. He jokingly told his friends to report him missing if he didn't return by February 1st, which was smart to do, although ominous. Charles hitchhiked to Crater Lake National Park. It is believed he hiked in through the North Road. Charles was inexperienced in the wilderness, and on top of this, weather conditions were poor. Fresh snow had covered the landscape. Skiers reported the snow as being waist-high, measuring at about 5 feet when Charles arrived. There were multiple sightings of Charles at the Diamond Lake area of the park during this time. When he failed to contact his friends after 2 days, they grew concerned and reported him as missing. A huge formal search of the area ensued, where ground and air search combed the entire north side of the park, but there was no trace of Charles anywhere. Sadly, Charles's father had not been contacted about his son's disappearance for 10 days. Immediately after receiving the phone call, he flew to Oregon where he continued to look for Charles. even camping at Crater Lake through the entire summer of '75. He too could find no trace of his son. That was until October 13th of 1976, when two hikers were on the Pacific Crest Trail and took a wrong turn. They ended up along a little-used trail in the Sphagnum Bog section of the park. This was a remote and less traveled area, and here is where they came across a dirty and ripped backpack. And yep, you guessed it, it belonged to Charles McCullar. The hikers reported the backpack to rangers, and right away a horse-mounted search set out to the area they had marked on a map. Upon arrival, they located the backpack. In the side pocket was a key to a Volkswagen van. Charles had left the van back in Virginia, but this was one of the first indicators the pack belonged to him. Soon after this discovery, Charles' jeans were found perfectly placed on a log. The rangers described the whole scene as absolutely bizarre. It was as if he had sat down on the log to look at the lake, and had melted into his jeans while doing so. The pants were unbuttoned, with the belt buckle undone. The pants were empty except for broken off pieces of his shin bones found within, along with some of his blood. His jeans were almost completely preserved, while the elastic to his underwear was nearly disintegrated within. How were the jeans in such mint condition if they had been out there for 9 months? Underneath his pants, Charles' foot bones were found in a pair of his socks. The crown of Charles' skull was found approximately 12 feet away from the log. His boots, coat, and shirt were never found, which could be explained if he was attacked by an animal. But his heavy camera equipment was never located either, which is difficult to wrap your head around. There was no money found in his backpack or jeans. This could indicate foul play. The FBI became involved after the discovery of Charles' remains, but when his skull fragment was examined, there was no evidence of blunt force trauma, and his official cause of death was determined to be from natural causes. A lot of mystery surrounds Charles' death. His remains were found 12 miles from the trailhead. How did he travel this distance with snow up to his waist? It is widely believed that he died from hypothermia, and this is why he removed his clothing. In some instances, when a person becomes hypothermic, they think they are extremely hot instead of cold, removing their clothing in hopes of escaping the sensation of unbearable heat. But if this were the case, and Charles removed his clothing except for his jeans, wouldn't other bones be found within? The pants showed no signs of being tampered with by wildlife. Logically, other bones would still be inside, such as his hips or femur. Others believe Charles was attacked by an animal. But again, how would his jeans be in such good condition if this happened? I guess it could be a possibility Charles was attacked by an animal after suffering from hypothermia and removing his clothing? But wouldn't there be a scatter with at least some hair and blood left behind? You guys will have to let me know what you think about this one down below. I have a feeling I'm just missing something with his death. It could have totally been from natural causes, but it just doesn't sit right with me. Along with strange disappearances and deaths, many bizarre suicides have occurred at Crater Lake as well. One suicide that stood out to me was that of Mr. Cornelius. He and his wife went hiking around the lake in July of 1947. During their hike, Cornelius stopped abruptly, handed his wife his billfold, and proceeded to slide down the steep ridge into the lake. He broke his leg in the process, but was still alive. His wife looked in complete horror as he clumsily walked into the lake and drowned himself, all in a matter of minutes. According to his wife, he did not say a word, and his expression was stoic, completely emotionless. She said they were a happy couple with a normal and adjusted life. She had no idea why he would do such a thing. She said it was as if her husband was in some sort of trance. I don't think the natives dubbing Crater Lake the Lost Lake is complete malarkey though. I find these stories fascinating and terrifying, and I truly believe something beyond our understanding is happening at Crater Lake. Sammy Boehlke's disappearance, Charles McCullar's death, and Mr. Cornelius' suicide are 3 stories I found most interesting when researching for this video. There are dozens more of odd and unexplained stories at Crater Lake. Everything from UFO and Bigfoot sightings to phantom fires seen by rangers. Also, there are countless stories of people falling into the caldera, almost as if the lake is calling to them. If you guys would like a part 2, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and let me know below if you are thinking about visiting or if it's a hell no for you. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!